Hey guys, and welcome to my tournament preparation video. I'm going to be going through some tips to help you prepare for future Faeria events, be it the ESL Cup, the monthly qualifiers, or even the monthly itself. And hopefully these tips will help you get ready for these big tournaments. So to start things off, we're going to go with lineup. Lineup is very important in Faeria, and most of the tournaments follow the Pantheon format. So the Pantheon format is when you select 3 decks, with one deck being your main deck. So you have to use your main deck first in every game you play, and it cannot contain more than 3 of any card or 1 of any legendary across your entire lineup. So that's something to consider when you're building your lineup and your decks. You know, what cards do you need in specific decks? What cards can you shift around? So the most important thing about building a lineup is I think you need to base your decks around one deck. So your starting deck is your most important. So let's say you decide to go with Green Rush, which is a deck I play a lot in ESL as my opening deck. So Green Rush is a deck I have to use first every time. And the rest of my decks are to support that deck. And what I mean by that is you want your other decks to counter decks that counter your Green Rush, if that makes any sense. So Green Rush is weak against blue, but Red Burn is good against blue. So if blue beats my Green Rush, I have red to fall back to beat the blue. And then you basically choose your deck's worst matchups and build counter decks to beat those decks in case you lose the first game. And that's probably the best way to build any lineup, I think. Alternatively, Three Wishes as your starting deck is going to be a little harder because, you know, Three Wishes uses the best cards of most of the colors, and you're going to need stuff like Aurora for your blue deck or Garadan for your red deck. So if you are deciding to use Free Wish as your starting deck, be sure to spread your resources across multiple decks. Don't just shove everything into the Free Wish deck and then just build drips and drapes to the decks with the other cards you have remaining. You want to make sure your other decks, in case your Free Wish deck loses, can fight against your opponent after. You don't want kind of lackluster decks to follow up. Also, when you create a lineup, it's very important to consider what the metagame is, or what you predict the metagame of the tournament is going to be. The metagame of a tournament doesn't always represent the metagame on ladder. Ladder index and tournament decks are 2 very different things. So if you're expecting a lot of blue, you might start off with a red yellow burn deck or just a red burn deck. But, you know, top players tend to think ahead of this, so they might think that people think that blue's going to be popular and they're going to bring red, so they bring wishes to counter red, if you know what I mean. So there's a lot of layers on predicting the meta game, but a good example is the recent monthly cup. I predicted a lot of red burn and a lot of blue, and it ended up being a lot of red mid-range, wish decks. You know, there was a lot of variety there of decks that I didn't expect. Which helped shape the metagame to what it is right now. So that's another thing you need to consider as a metagame. And how you do that is you gather data from playing with practice partners, talking to other competitive players, kind of get their mindset of what people are running, or just gathering data on ladder and seeing what the top players are running. So another way you can improve as well is by watching top players play. Now, Trump, very famous Hearthstone player, when he went into the competitive scene, because Trump was always regarded as a kind of a streamer, and then last year he decided that he was going to become competitive, and he said the main way he learned to play the game was watching others. And I think that's really important. If you really want to step up your game, learn off the players who are already at the top. We have a wealth of great streamers out there who play at the highest level. Cappuccino, we have Lou. Those 2 players alone, you can learn tremendous amounts of just by watching what they do and figuring out why they did it. And one thing Trump did as well, especially when he watched tournaments, because tournament plays take a lot longer, he would make his own play in his mind with what cards the player has. And then he'd see what they would do. And if they would do the same thing, obviously he's synced up, they have the same strategy. But if the player did something different, he would then try and figure out why they did it differently. So that's a great way to approach learning Faeria, and of course improving your competitive play. So the last thing I'm going to cover, which is going to kind of sound a bit weird, I guess, but it's very important, is battling fatigue. Now, tournaments, especially qualifiers and monthly cups and Swisses, big Swisses, take up a lot of energy. You know, you play your first 3 games, you're in the form of your life, you're winning, it's great, and then you start getting tired and you start making misplays. And great ways to combat this is hydration. Now, don't drink Red Bulls, don't drink Monsters, you don't want to drink that stuff. That's not going to help you. That's a short-term fix. Whenever I've played in a competitive environment, especially at LANs, I've always drank water with a bit of soda as well, just to get some sugar in me. So water is the number one drink if you're playing in a tournament, especially a long tournament that's going to take hours and hours. Of course, keep well fed as well. One thing I tend to do if I go to a tournament is I'll eat something massive in the morning before the tournament starts, a few hours before the tournament start, to kind of cover me for the rest of the event. And then I generally don't eat while I'm playing in case it upsets my stomach, in case I get nervous or something like that. So yeah, it makes it seem like a stupid thing to discuss, but it is very important. You want to keep your brain in top form. Hydration is the best way you can do that. So that could really help you. You could be a moment in a tournament where you need to make this specific play, but your brain, you're just so tired after playing 6 hours worth of Faeria. You know, you've got $1,500 on the line, and then you make a misplay. Now that may still happen, but if you're hydrated, you know, and full of energy, you know, you're walking around, you're making sure you're not sat in your chair all day, you'll probably have a better chance of not making that misplay. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. So that's how I would suggest preparing for a tournament. There's a lot of tournaments available right now. There's the Lunar Rumble, there's the ESL Weekly on Sundays, there's also the monthly qualifiers, and the $3,300 monthly itself. So plenty of tournaments to practice this preparation. So I hope this helps you guys prepare for future events. I look forward to casting you guys in the big cups in the future. So that's it from me. Take care, and I hope I helped.